Alright guys, we're back again. Today's going to be a quick video for you DIYers and professionals, just showing you how I set a flange on a new roughin. As you can see, I took that pipe out. I always mark it not glued. That way I know when I come back, I know that PVC is not glued to the elbow or whatever fitting you have underneath the floor. So first thing I do is get my knockoff flange, knock it out, slide it in. Make sure it's a good quality knockoff flange, stainless steel ring on it. Make sure it's sitting flush on the ground. Pull out your measuring tape, measure the piece. Once you got that piece and you know it's pretty good, do not cut it too long, because then when you're going to glue it on, it's going to be too long and the flange is not going to be flush with the floor. So I always cut it about an 1/8 inch short. That way I know when I push down on it, it's going to sit flush with the floor. Cut that piece out. Primer it, as you guys told me in a couple videos. Oh, I can't believe it, you guys use proper primer and you're not messy at all. There's no way you primer. As you can see here, I use purple primer and I'm not messy at all. So I'm pretty good at with the Q-tip, and I put it all over the pipe, nice and even. That way when I glue it in, I know it's about 1.25 to 1.5 inches or whatever goes into the fitting. So when it does go in, it's nice and clean and you barely see the primer. So first thing I do is I glue it onto the flange. Then I glue it onto the fitting in the floor, either a 90 or whatever you have down there. Make sure when you rough in, support that fitting real nice. So when you are pressing down on it, you're not pushing that fitting down and you're not gluing the pipe in at the correct depth. Usually goes in about 1.5 inches. I always rough in 3-inch. A lot of guys do 4-inch. I like doing 3-inch. That's the way I roll, and I use over the pipe flange in this case. So when you glue it, make sure it's still flush with the floor like you originally tested it, and then screw it in. A lot of guys don't screw all the flange in. They just put 2 screws in there because they're too lazy to drill the tile. Just screw all them in. There's 6 holes in the flange for a reason. That way that flange doesn't move and it's rock solid when you set that toilet. So I use a tile bit. Sometimes you use a masonry bit like you see I'm using here. And always use stainless steel screws. In this case, I had deck screws, which are exterior screws. They're just coated with some epoxy paint, I believe it is. So just use screws that they're not going to rust and fall apart in a couple months from the moisture. All right, so screw all the things in, and I just couldn't stand the damn smell no more coming out of that toilet. So I had to put a rag in there while I screwed it the flange in. Get 6 screws, epoxy screws, deck screws, whatever you want to call them. Stainless steel screws. Screw the flange in, make sure it's not moving anything, and you are catching wood. If you got a good contractor, they know they got to cut the tile around the pipe correctly, and there's got to be wood around there. That way when you're going to screw the flange in, you're securing it to something. So once that all secure, clean the area out, make sure you have nothing around there, and prepare to set the toilet. The way I use it, I use some nylon bolts. A lot of guys just still use the brass ones, or the set right screws, I think they're called. They're like adjustable, you don't have to cut it. I find these screws to be amazing. These bolts, I'm sorry. They're nylon, they're real strong, and they're good to go. If you live in North Jersey and need some plumber work done, residential or commercial, let us know. See you on the next one. See ya.